Ángela. Hola, Ángela.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, Sally, ¿estás aquí con nosotros?
Sí, hola, hola. Hola, Angela.
Hola, Sally.
Hola.
Hola, David.
Hola, 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 hola.
¿Cómo estás hoy, Angela?
Muy bien.
Excelente.
A little warm today.
Sí, la clima es muy calor.
Calor, sí, sí.
Calor,
sí.
sí.
I always forget that one. I'm like, what one is it again? Yeah.
Hace mucho calor.
Hace mucho calor. Yeah, so a couple of things with this one. Clima ends with A, so it seems like it should be feminine, but it is masculine. So there are, it's not like a set rule, but a lot of words that end with MA are masculine.
Ah.
Por ejemplo, el tema.
Clima, tema, poema.
Oh, sí.
A lot of words, not all of them. It's not a set rule, but a lot of words that end with MA are masculine.
Interesting.
It would be too easy if it were all of them.
I know, right? Like,
That's funny.
why would they make it easy?
Exactly.
Okay. And then, so now we've got another thing, right? So more of a kind of a grammar thing, right? You can say el clima es caloroso, right? So clima really means climate. It doesn't mean weather.
That makes more sense.
Weather is the same word as time in Spanish, actually.
Oh.
Ah, that would explain so much because I've seen that before and they were like, no, that's not what that says. And I'm like, are you sure?
So really the correct way to say it would be like what you just said, Sally. Hace mucho calor, or el clima hace mucho calor hoy, right? I do, you know, I was always taught 20 years ago that that's a pretty strict thing. You always use the verb hacer to talk about the weather. Hace calor, hace frío, etc.
Yeah, I think I've heard that a lot.
I hear frequently these days, está, like está caloroso, está. Hoy está caloroso, hoy está muy frío. That I was always taught was not the correct way to say it.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's become an acceptable way to talk about it, or if that's just like this the Americanization or the English, whatever word I'm looking for there. So like
Americanization.
Languages change and evolve. As you know, the English we speak today is not the English that Shakespeare spoke. Like,
heck no.
I don't know if you've ever tried to read Shakespeare, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a little complicated.
Like, no, this is not it. So, you know, it is changing. It is evolving as more and more Spanish speakers live here in the United States. You know, you hear expressions and phrases being borrowed, you know, from the English language. Hi, Gabriel.
Hola.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Hola, Gabriel.
Estoy bien. ¿Y tú?
Sí, muy bien, gracias, gracias.
Sí.
¿Estás aquí para practicar inglés entonces? ¿Tú hablas español como idioma nativo?
I'm actually here for Spanish.
You're here to practice Spanish. Okay, perfectísimo, muy bien. I wasn't sure with your name and when you started speaking Spanish. Bien, muy bien. Pues todos son alumnos de español hoy. Everybody here is a Spanish student today. So we'll go ahead and get started, okay? Vamos a comenzar la reunión. Me llamo David, soy el director de una escuela de idiomas aquí en Denver, Colorado. Soy profesor de español, tanto como inglés. Y esta es una reunión para unirnos juntos, reunirnos y practicar los dos idiomas. Y realmente el objetivo de hoy es tutoría. ¿ok? Es con la idea de que ustedes están en un curso y necesitan un poco de ayuda con algo específico, ¿ok? So, my name is David, and I'm the director of the language school here in Denver, Colorado. We teach both English and Spanish. And this is a weekly meeting that we do to practice both languages, but really more specifically with the objective of tutoring, meaning you're currently enrolled in some type of program or you're studying Spanish and you have a particular question about the language or the grammar. So this class is really for you. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. Any questions are welcome, and I can pull up my whiteboard and start, kind of teaching things based off of what you are having questions with today. So I don't know, Angela, Sally, Gabriel, do any of you have any specific questions about the Spanish language that's kind of causing you to lose sleep at night?
So okay, the song that I haven't gone over, the little challenge you gave us, I haven't gone over my songs for this week yet because I've had a lot of stuff going on. However, the one from last week, there are 2 words that I was curious about. It's the Amor Sin Condición song that was in my playlist that I sent you. I don't know if you remember that at all.
I don't think, I think I know what you're talking about, but I don't know if I've actually looked at that. Like, so a lot of times if I get a text message when I'm in class, get it, and then I put it away.
And then you forget about it, yeah.
I forget to review it, so I think that's probably what happened there.
I'll just give you an example. Like the first line is antes de hablar.
What's the name of the song?
Amor sin condición.
To love without conditions?
Yes, at least that's the way it looks.
Yeah, or like, what do we say? Unconditional love.
Conditional.
Antes de hablar, cantaste sobre mí. Hi, did we just have, is it Abrar that joined us?
Yeah, it's Abrar.
Hi, Abrar, how are you?
Good, hi.
Yeah, Abrar is one of our English students, so she's joining us today to practice some English. And where are you from, Abrar? From
Saudi Arabia.
From Saudi Arabia, that's right.
Oh, cool.
So she can teach us some Arabic. Does everybody here know how to say hello in Arabic?
No.
Salam.
Any.
Salam alaikum.
Salam alaikum, right?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh.
Cool.
Yeah, good. All right, so welcome, Abrar. Today is tutoring. So this is the idea that like if you're in one of our English classes, you can ask me questions about something that you're studying in class that you're not 100% sure about, okay?
Okay.
Sorry, I've got another person, so we're gonna log in here. Cool. So
Una pregunta, Abrar.
Yeah, Abrar.
¿Hace mucho calor hoy?
So Abrar does not speak Spanish.
Oh, lo siento.
She's one of our English students from Saudi Arabia. She speaks Arabic and in English.
Yes, I heard that, but I guess I just assumed she also spoke Spanish, but no. Very, very nice to meet you, Abrar.
I guess I should ask, do you speak Spanish, Abrar? Because
No, I don't speak in Spanish.
No, okay. Yeah, I just kind of assumed that. So what, did you want to ask her a different question, Sally?
Yes, then I will ask you, what is the weather like today where you live?
I'm living in Colorado. The weather today is sunny.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah, it's very sunny and very hot here today.
Very hot. Yeah.
Yuck.
It is very hot in Minnesota as well. Yesterday was about 95 degrees Fahrenheit, and today is going to be about 93 degrees Fahrenheit.
Wow. So you're having pretty much the same weather as us. Gabriel, ¿dónde vives tú?
In Michigan.
Ajá.
Oh,
Okay. ¿Y hace mucho calor en Michigan también?
Mm, sí.
Sí. Está bien. Okay. Muy bien. So, Angela, you were starting to ask me about this song in Spanish, and this is always a nice way to kind of teach both English and Spanish grammar at the same time. So I'm going to see if I can share my screen with you.
Okay.
So a couple of weeks ago, I gave Angela and Sally an assignment to pick 10 Spanish songs, learn the lyrics, and then learn what the lyrics mean. And I suspected if they'd learn a new song and the lyrics and learn how to listen to it, they're really going to intensify their listening comprehension enormously in just 10 weeks.
Mhm.
So let's see here. Angela, you have, you were asking about the first, can you see this now, the lyrics? here?
Yes, yes. So my question is where it says antes de hablar, wouldn't it be instead of the AR, wouldn't it be hablaste, I think is how you say it. Like I was confused on the to speak. I thought it would be like speaking, or I guess I misunderstood the sentence.
Yeah, so you're still in the first level of Spanish.
Right.
Or have you gone on to the second level? I can't remember.
I have my test Monday.
Cool. So, there's still a lot to learn about the Spanish language.
Mm-hmm.
The way we use infinitives in English and the way they're used in Spanish are not 100% the same. So what this translates to here is antes de hablar, before talking.
Okay.
So sometimes where we use what in English, this is called the gerund, okay? So let me bring up my little notepad thing here. All right. Can you see my notepad, or are you still on the lyrics? Okay.
Yes.
You see this, right? So, hablar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. This is what's called the verb infinitive. Okay.
Right.
Typically, this would translate in English to
speak, or yeah,
Or-
to talk.
to speak, right?
Mhm.
Okay. When in certain, and then so like hablando
It's speaking, right?
would typically translate in English to talking,
Right, talking.
talking or speaking, right?
Mhm.
But certain phrases or certain expressions can modify a verb and change the meaning from like the infinitive to, like, in this situation, this ing, this is what's called the gerund form.
Oh, right.
Gerund, okay? So there's a little, so this what we're struggling with here is the difference between the gerund versus the progressive or the continuous
Oh, okay.
form. And they're not 100% corresponding between English and Spanish here. Okay? So there's certain expressions that can modify a verb and kind of change the meaning. Antes de después de, and another one of my favorites is just to say al, okay?
Okay.
And so when we do this, right, antes de means before.
Mm-hmm.
Después de means after.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's after.
And then al is like saying a pun.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Put that before a verb, al, it's like saying a pun, right? So I'm just going to give you a couple of expressions here. Después needs a little accent mark on it. Thank you, Google. All right. So we can see how that we can use these in conversation to see how they work, right? So in Spanish, these are followed by the verb infinitive, okay? In English, these are followed by the progressive.
Okay.
ing form of the verb, right? Okay, so we'll just take a couple of expressions here. How, for Gabrielle, since I've never worked with you before, is this an appropriate level or for you? Does this make sense?
Sí.
You're following? Okay, good. Perfect, right? So, like in the song here that you have, what is it? Antes de hablar. Antes de hablar. I could say, for example, antes de hablar contigo. This is like saying in English, before speaking with you.
Oh yeah, with you.
That's how we would say it in English, right? Before speaking with you or before talking to you, right?
Right.
So you can imagine, you know, hey, Angela, before talking to you last week, I was kind of feeling upset, but after talking to you, I felt better. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, because when I was writing it down, I was like, this doesn't make, because like the next line is cantaste sobre mí, and so I was like, the way I wrote it out was before you speak of, you like saying to me is how I wrote it, and I was like, that doesn't sound right. And I was like, I don't know if I'm translating it wrong or what.
Yeah. Yeah, this is where we run into certain complications with translation because it doesn't always translate 100% the same way.
Okay.
And so that's another, like, that's the really importance of doing an activity like this. Kind of try and do it on your own, but then come back and confirm, right? Confirm just to make sure that you're on the right track, right? Because not everything translates 100%. And these are just certain little like modismos, like modalities of the language that do not 100% line up. I could give another example, right? Al llegar a la casa, siempre me cambio la ropa. Who can tell me how to say this in English?
Something.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Upon arriving at home, I always change my clothes, my clothes.
Yeah, so here again, we see another slight disconnect, right? In Spanish, this me cambio la ropa, this is the reflexive verb. So I don't know if anybody's gotten to reflexive verbs, right, in Spanish, but when I say me cambio, when the subject and the object are the same in Spanish, this is what's called a reflexive verb. And then it becomes redundant here in Spanish to say mi ropa, because obviously you're doing it to yourself when you say me cambio. So in Spanish, it's actually incorrect to say me cambio mi ropa. That's how our English brains would translate that, right? But it's redundant because we've already said me cambio, right?
Okay.
But in English at the same time, you know, we have to use our possessive, I change my clothes, right?
Interesting. Yeah, because that was the same for like the next line where it's antes de respirar, where I was like, should it be respirar? I was like, I feel like that should be the same way, but you know.
Yeah. So,
So.
if we go back to the song, right, and we can just kind of break down these lyrics. So this is like saying, before talking, you sang about me. You have been so good for me. Before breathing, you blew.
Oh, so it is breathing. Okay.
Oh, you
You
blew
life into me.
Yeah, that line was very confusing to me.
You have been so good for me. And then there's also like, you know, you could all like, there's different ways you could modify this, right? I could say before talking. This is just the in general before talking. We could be more specific and say antes de que yo hablé contigo, before I talked to you. And so, you know, then again, like, so these expressions up here, this antes de and después de, we can modify that. Antes de que, and now we need our regular verb conjugation.
Okay.
Just because that que is there. And if I say después de que, right? So I could modify that like I was saying, antes de que yo.
Yeah, see, that K screws me up because I keep wanting to think.
Contigo, or antes de que tú hablaste conmigo. And then in English, we're saying before I talked to you, or before you talked to me.
Okay.
So we're just tiny little modifications of the expressions and the accompanying, you know, adjectives and whatnot that can kind of, but you have to understand like kind of when and where. And these are things that are a little bit more advanced than your current like first level.
Yeah,
but
I figured it would be easy because I knew the English lyrics, and then when I transferred it over, I was like, this ain't the words. I was like, I feel like I'm doing this wrong.
So what? This is an English song that.
Yeah, it's an English song that I think they might have translated to Spanish.
Yeah.
And because the band is based out of Australia originally, and then they split off, and so they have like a band in Spain now, I think, and then you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'm so confused. I think I'm doing this wrong.
So yeah, another thing to keep in mind, especially when you hear those types of songs that are originally in English and then they get reproduced in Spanish and vice versa, is that with our, you know, poetic license, they oftentimes change.
Oh, okay.
Like I've heard songs like Mark Anthony, really great, you know, salsa artist from Puerto Rico. He has certain songs that he has in English and in Spanish, and the lyrics are completely different.
Oh, wow.
The meanings of the song are completely different, just to keep the rhythm of the original song, right?
Huh.
That's what happened with the song that I chose, Son Amores by Natalie Lafourcade. And, you know, it's when the moon hits your eye like a big pizza pie.
I forgot you chose that song.
But with this is Cuando sientas como un palpitar corazón, when you feel like a pounding heart.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
that's
has
different.
flavor,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah. And then it goes on to Son Amores, so,
Okay.
but even that, our loves. So, yeah, I had trouble with that, but
Definitely
I just,
different than the Dean Martin version.
yes, but I love the singer and
Mhm.
the version, so.
Sometimes it's nice because the rhythm is familiar, but yeah, the meanings will be because to get the like songs and music all revolve around a rhyme, right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Frequently, it's poetry that's being sung that revolves around a rhyme. So to preserve
Yeah.
the true artistic rhyming of the lyrics, they will very often completely change the meaning of what
Yes.
Yeah.
they're singing. So
Yeah.
that's normal. Just to kind of switch things up a little bit, Abrar, I want to open it up to you because I know you're in one of our English classes. This is tutoring, right? So this is for you to ask me questions about something that you're learning right now that is a little hard or confusing or something you just want some extra perspective on. So how can I help you today, Abrar? What do you want to learn today?
I don't have any question about English.
No?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Your English is very good,
Yes.
Thank you.
very good.
Thank you.
Did you learn as a young child?
Yeah.
Nice.
In the US or in Saudi Arabia?
In the Saudi Arabia.
Oh,
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Neat.
I've got, I don't know how many of these that I'm going to be able to do, but I'm just going to throw a couple of things out here. So if you don't know this already, Spanish is like 90% based in Latin, and the next biggest influence is Arabic.
I did not know that.
Cool.
So here's a couple of words that I'm going to give to Abrar, because now I'm going to teach you. Our English students get to learn two languages at the same time. All of our English students end up learning Spanish too, if that's not their native language, right? Let's see here. We've got azúcar, camisa, almohada,
Alcohol.
ojalá. What was that one, Gabriel?
Alcohol.
Alcohol?
Alcohol. Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's one, but let me ask you this. Abrar, azúcar. What do you think that means?
What? Again?
Azúcar.
What azúcar? This is English, not Arabic, this one?
No, azúcar is Spanish, but what's it sound like to you in Arabic?
Wait. I use Google Translate.
This is a cognate with Arabic, I do believe. Sucre, right? Don't you say sucre, sugar?
Sugar, sukkar.
Sucar, right? You say sucar. That's
Okay.
Arabic.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Sucar. Of course, you use a different alphabet, so I don't know how to do that in Arabic, right? Camisa, what do you think that is, Abrar?
Camisa. I don't know camisa.
What is camis?
Camis. Thursday.
It's a shirt, right? Camis.
No. Camis. Camis. I think
Camis.
Thursday. Yeah. Camis day.
All right. I believe this is from Arabic as well. Almohada. I don't know how to say this in Arabic. How do you say pillow in Arabic?
Al-Mahdi?
Al-Mahdi. Al-Mahdi. So
Al-Mahdi.
that's a little bit of a almohada, Al-Mahdi. Like there's an Arabic influence there. Ojalá.
What?
Ojalá.
I don't know. Ojalá.
What does Allah mean in Arabic, right? Allah is God, right?
Yeah.
And so ojalá means I hope, or in other words, God willing.
Or I wish.
I wish, I
Uh-huh.
wish, or
Mm.
God willing. So that's another kind of,
Uh-huh.
these are all Arabic influences in the Spanish language.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spanish is like 90% based in Latin, but then there's another like 10%. And it comes from, if you look at, this is why I love learning history along with languages. Spanish was occupied by the Moors for a long time, right?
Oh, yeah.
There was an Arabic caliphate in Spain at some point. And, you know, the whole religious, you know, Catholic and the religious wars and all that stuff, you know, the Catholic Muslim clashes and stuff like that, that all took place in Spain. So yeah, there was a time where they spoke Arabic in Spain and not Spanish. And of course, we see that influence here with certain Spanish words. And that's
pretty cool.
that's why I know just a tiny little bit of Arabic from studying Spanish. So this is the really cool thing. So that's why learning languages is so much fun and so powerful. You know, the hardest one is your first language. Once you learn not your first, but your second language, once you learn that second language, it starts opening you up to these new patterns and stuff. So if you're ready to learn your third language, like it just happens. It all starts falling into place for you.
That's very cool.
Yep. Yeah, good. Gabriel, what since you're new with us also too, you're learning Spanish. What do you have anything I can help you out with grammatically or in terms of Spanish? And a study, this is study tips. This is completely for you. So all questions are welcome.
I don't think so.
Nothing in particular? Okay. Sally?
Oh, there are so many. Well, you know, David, that my big challenge is speaking Spanish. I have been studying it for a while, both taking classes and some Duolingo and watching YouTubes, and I can read pretty well. I understand the grammar, so my reading skills are quite good, but speaking is always difficult for me.
Yeah. You know, there's only one way to do that, and it's to talk more. Like that.
Yes.
It's a simple piece of advice, but in reality, it's hard to do unless you know, start surrounding yourself with Spanish-speaking people, you know. And unfortunately, with the current situation where we're, you know, limited to physical human interaction, it's even harder to do that, you know. But like I think the song activity that I gave you to do is going to help you, because there's an old saying that, you know, God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
Yep.
Listening is, like, when it comes to communication, listening is so much more important than actually speaking. And we have it in our heads that we want to learn how to speak Spanish. But really, we should have it that we want to learn how to understand Spanish. And if we start with that in mind, it's odd. It doesn't, like, that's completely contradictory to what everybody thinks about, you know, but listening will help you with your conversation, because if you don't understand what you're being asked, it doesn't matter how good you can speak Spanish if you can't understand it, right?
Yeah.
Right.
So even, like, you know, just to simplify it, if somebody asks you a question and you answer it, you don't even need Spanish to answer. You can just do this.
Yes. Or point this way, that way.
Yeah.
That's
But my dad
funny.
used to joke around. He came to visit me when I was living in Argentina, you know, and he always told me, you know, my problem isn't speaking Spanish. I can speak it just fine. I have no problem walking up to somebody and saying, ¿Dónde está el banco? The problem comes when they answer me and they go,
Yes.
you know, they always point. So what ends up happening, like if I'm looking for an ATM machine, I have to end up talking to about 20 different people, and I just follow the first direction that they point. It takes me an hour because I follow the first direct, you know, I ask, ¿Dónde está el banco? And I walk, you know, they point that way, and then they point that way, and then they point that way, and they're going, blah, 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 you know? So what he would ultimately do is just walk down to the end of the block and then ask a new person.
Yeah.
And where the next person pointed, he would go that way.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
You know, he always found what he was looking for, but it was so, like,
This took a little time.
thinking about that, you know, it's if I don't know if reverse psychology, that's not the right expression I'm looking for, but it's a little bit of backwards thinking. Like, focus on your listening comprehension. Focus on listening. Focus on those songs, and you know, you're at an intermediate level. You're at a level where you can watch TV, listen to the radio, watch TV, watch movies, listen to music, and like the more and more you do that, unfortunately, there's no magic recipe here. I'm gonna share. This is a new article I'm actually working on, that I'm writing. So can you see this again?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So this, I'm just writing, what is conversational Spanish, or what is conversational English?
Interesting.
It's an exchange of ideas and information. A conversation is an exchange of ideas or information, right? And it's just like, you know, here's my first phrase, you know, I think it would be helpful to understand what learning how to speak a new language means. It's quite simple. It all boils down to speaking the language. And that sounds absurdly simple, but it's honestly, if you want to improve your speaking skills, you have to talk more.
Yes.
If you want to improve your listening skills, you have to listen more. Right? And I go down here, and this is just kind of, oh, there's my son.
Oh,
nice.
That's
in
cute.
this part,
yes, muy guapo.
yeah, he is. He gets it from
Sí.
daddy. No, he actually looks just like mom. So words are the foundation to a conversation. And I give this because his first word was agua. And because when I used to give him a bath, all I would do is splash the water and say agua, agua, agua. He got that word down at 6 months.
Wow, that's
able
awesome.
to use that word at 6 months, because all I did was, you know, for a half an hour, giving him a bath, splashing and going agua, 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 right?
Cool.
And he started saying it, right? With just that one word. Then he started learning how to use it outside of the bathtub when he was thirsty, and he would say agua, and then we knew he wanted water. So like that's
pretty cool.
all it is a word, you know. We overcomplicate it with our desire to speak it perfectly, but it doesn't matter, you know. If you're able to exchange that idea, you're communicating, and we can do that without.
That's cool.
We don't even need words, like I said.
Yeah, I also do better if I am in a Spanish-speaking country. I both listen more carefully, and then I, you know, dive in and speak just because I have to if the person doesn't speak English.
Yeah, and so then you don't have a choice, right? So choice is another big factor. When you don't have to, like if you have a conversation partner that you're comfortable with and you're speaking Spanish, and then you get to a point where you revert back to English, you're going back to your comfort zone. When you're in Mexico, you don't have a choice.
No.
Well, it's
and
hilarious.
then you kind of can fine tune it as you understand a little more of what they're saying, and maybe you've said something wrong. You can fine tune it then as you go, and ultimately, like you said, you meet somewhere and you're understanding them and they're understanding you.
Yeah.
See, I think for me it's hard because I'm hard of hearing. So I'm not only trying to like hear them, but I'm trying to understand them. Because I'm like, okay, did they say water? Or did they say something else?
Yeah.
There's also, you know, like what you're talking about is a physiological aspect of this, where physiological conditions in emotional, psychological conditions can also come into play. If you're having a bad day and somebody starts speaking Spanish to you, you don't care. You're not going to listen. You're having a bad day. Like, that's
Yeah.
the last thing because it's stressful on your brain. Like, you are using your brain in a new way that you've never used. And so if you have any other stresses going on, and Angela, in your situation, you know, if you have a physiological thing where you have a hard time hearing in the first place, it's going to be exacerbated in your second language. I've been speaking Spanish for 20 years. When I go out dancing salsa at a nightclub and there's like a lot of noise, I can't talk to people. I can in English, but I cannot do that in my second language.
Right.
I start speaking,
Really?
if it's not a perfect thing, I can't do that either, because it's so hard to hear that. I'm going through all these Zoom classes right now, and when the connection starts breaking up, if they're speaking English, I can kind of get my way through it. But when it's in Spanish, it's just like, man.
Yeah.
So the next point, just with this thing that I'm like, there is a science, like this stuff that I'm doing and I'm teaching in our program here, this is based in science, you know?
Cool.
And so like, if you look at like the way the brain works, like a lot of people understand the difference. Like everybody's heard like the right brain or the left brain, right?
Right.
Like, I can't remember which one's which, but they say like some are more kind of scientific and mathematical, and then others are kind of more creative. I'm the creative type. I can't remember which one that is.
Yeah, see, I think that's right
I think
brain.
that's right
because,
brain. Right is creative. Left is analytical.
So that's me all day, every day. But there's actually a lot more components to the brain than just that right side and the left side. And this is cool because when it comes to learning, and there's other, you know, pictures of brains that break this into far more components. But like if we're talking about a language, like languages are really complex and there's so much going on with it. But, you know, there's, you know, forget about grammar and rules and prepositions and these like expressions, like the difference between antes de and antes de que, like, you know, all that stuff is there, right? But in terms of the way the brain actually works is when you're learning a new skill, you develop like what's called these neurological pathways. Like you actually create a connection. It's like you know, a car or a computer, or like in the olden times when they had, I don't know if you see it, like we don't do it anymore, but like in the movies where they're making a call and they say, let me transfer your call, and there's actually someone back in this room and they're like pulling a cable out and putting in another little tube, you know, like those are like, that's a very similar thing to exactly this, because you're developing those pathways, and it's possible to misfire and to cross those pathways. And I don't know if like Angela, if you've ever had experience where you're speaking Spanish and then just an English word comes out and you don't even realize that you just said, like, this happens.
I've actually done it reverse where I'm saying something and I'm like, oh, yeah, I meant this here, you know, it like yes or something like that, I'll throw out.
So guess what?
And so, yeah.
That's in your early Spanish speaking career, that's a good thing, because that means you're actually developing those pathways and you just crossed the wire. That means you've actually developed the pathway and you just misfired, right? If you continue to do it, then it turns into a habit, and that's bad. And if you develop a habit, then you have to break the habit, and that can be really bad. So this is all going to make sense in a second here, Sally, to address that question. So when you're like, if you're reading Spanish, you're activating this part of your brain. You're activating the vision part of your brain. If you're writing Spanish, you're activating the touch part and the vision part, right? But when you're speaking Spanish, you're activating the vision part and the hearing part. And depending on the circumstance, like imagine you're out at a restaurant, you're also eating food, you're activating smell, touch, and taste all at the same time, right? So like, or if you're dancing salsa and your partner has cologne on or a perfume on, or like other things are getting activated once you start speaking a Spanish. And so like there's also another part, which is just like the part of your brain that has to process and understand like, so when you're speaking Spanish or hablar, when you're speaking English, you're hearing it. You're activating the listening part of your brain, but then there's like, you hear it, you think about it, and you process it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then when you turn around and you have to speak it, you're also, I would say, you're activating the touch part, because when you're moving your mouth, you know, your mouth, your tongue is touching, and like there's a physiological thing that's taking place in your mouth. So Sally, and then like, I don't know, Gabrielle, Anja, for all of you, the reason why that first line that I put in there is it's all about speaking the language, right? And that sounds simple, but it is that simple. If you have studied Spanish or English in a traditional language program, you have only activated one or two parts of your brain. And unfortunately, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but neurologically, like you start developing your brain pathways, right? You're developing the connections, and you're not developing the right connections.
That makes sense.
To get those right connections, you have to do it all at the same time. And so that's why the sooner you can start speaking Spanish, the more success you're going to have, because you're developing the right connections all at the right time. If you look at little kids, like my son developing his first language, that's how you do it, by listening and repeating and making mistakes and getting corrected and being intuitive and looking for those nonverbal cues that now as adults we don't necessarily catch on to. We're not so intuitive with our language skills because we've already developed one language system. And so this is like just mechanics. This is brain science. And so what can happen, Sally, is if you've been studying, I don't know how long you've been studying Spanish, but my assumption is it's been for several years. And I'm also going to assume that you have primarily done a traditional kind of grammar-based approach. And I say that because this is the only, like, what I do is the only conversational, like true conversational stuff that not saying it's not out there, but from my experience of living and studying Spanish in 5 different countries and doing this for the last 20 years, I'm doing different stuff that nobody else does, that I've ever, this is all just coming out of this thing right here. And I don't know why, but it is, right? And so it's, you know, you end up, you've developed habits that are based on reading and writing. So you just said it, right? You read Spanish really well because that's what you're comfortable with. That's what you've always done. And that's what the approach that you've always taken has taught you how to do. And what it ends up happening is it leaves you with the missing piece of the puzzle, like in this picture, right? That brain connection, these neurological pathways, you've developed certain ones, but you haven't combined now like all of these different compartments and taught, like you have to teach them how to work together. And so, like, again, you know, my advice, it sounds simple, you know, talk more, talk to people more in Spanish when you do. And another thing too, like, because, you know, you don't have Spanish friends or whatever, like, where are you going to just like walk out, hey world, come talk to me in Spanish? But when you're doing your homework, say everything out loud, read everything out loud. Don't just read out loud. That will help you develop,
that's
you know,
what I do.
instead of just the vision component, when you read out loud, you're also developing that touch and the hearing, because you're hearing yourself speak, like, and so now you're teaching so like everything that you should do from day number 1, it doesn't matter if you're in a conversation group, like you do our language exchange on Friday, if you're in one of our classes, or if in your traditional program, when you get your traditional homework, do it conversationally, even if it's just you, which means talk to yourself. And that will actually help you.
And now that Zoom has become a standard communication method for many of us, Judy, my friend Judy, and I do our homework together on Zoom.
Oh, how
Fantastic.
fun.
And so we lapse into English if we need to, but we try to keep it mostly Spanish.
Nice. Well, I
And-
mean, plus, like, I actually texted Sally and said, hey, like, I'm really wanting to get better to be like reading, and being able to, flip the words from English to Spanish and stuff. So I've actually asked her to like text me very basic everyday stuff, like, how is your day going, da 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 da, in Spanish. So that way I'm like, okay, I know this word, and I'm like practicing learning to read it. We've actually been doing that the last
Yes.
couple days or something.
At least maybe
So,
a
yeah.
week. Yeah.
The other thing is too, like when I first moved to Argentina, I made friends with the people that were in my class that were other Spanish students. They weren't native Spanish speakers, but we would talk to each other in Spanish. We kept the conversation going outside of
Yeah.
class, so you don't
Yeah.
necessarily have to find a native Spanish speaker, just somebody that you can practice
Right.
Spanish with, and
Mhm.
Right.
and just about everything that you're doing is going to be productive, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's
Yeah.
great that you guys have connected. I'm really happy to hear that. That makes me happy.
Yeah.
Well, it's because of your group, David.
Yep.
That's what we do. That's
Yep.
my whole
Yep.
existence of being is it's uniting people and bringing people together.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The other thing too, just real quick to add this too, is just patience. Like
Mhm.
another thing that happens as adults is you've already got your first language system developed, which is English.
Mhm.
You are so used to being able to communicate with people that when you are unable to communicate with people, it's easy as an adult just to get frustrated, right? We're
Mhm.
our own worst enemies, and you just have to remind yourself, like, imagine if you've been studying Spanish for 2 years. Have you ever had a conversation with a 2-year-old? You know what I mean?
All the time.
Yeah, like put things into perspective,
Yes.
Like also it's only been 2 years, which as an adult seems like an eternity.
Yeah.
But honestly, it's nothing. It's
Mhm.
nothing. Like
Mhm.
it takes time.
Mhm.
And don't, you cannot control, I'm reminded of this more and more and more these days, right? You can't control what happens around you, but
Right.
you
Yeah.
can control how you react to it.
Mhm.
Super important, psychologically speaking. A lot of times as you're a Spanish student, it's easy to get caught up on what you don't know. It's easy to get
Mhm.
frustrated on what you don't understand. And, I'll tell you the truth. Very early into my Spanish studies, I almost gave up permanently when the first time I moved to Spain, because I thought you got to go to Spain to learn Spanish, and I didn't speak any Spanish, and I was in immersion class 4 hours a day, and it was a miserable experience. I can't tell you what an awful experience it was. And
Yeah.
I almost gave up until I realized I had to change my mindset
Mhm.
if I was going to do it, because I really wanted to learn Spanish, and I'm not one to give up. I'm the most stubborn person. It's terribly, terribly, terribly difficult to be me and be as stubborn as I am. It gives me the tenacity to keep going and to do things that otherwise wouldn't be possible. And it's the only reason why I got through Spanish. And when I was ready to give up and go and come back, seriously, I called my mom, like practically begging her to buy me a plane ticket to come home. And I decided to, there's a good expression, since we were talking about the word almohada. Consultar la almohada. Decidí consultar la almohada. So I decided to consult my pillow.
I was just going to say that's what I thought it was.
Which
So
means
funny.
I decided to
Slept on it.
sleep on it, right? In English, we
Yes.
say I decided to sleep on it. I really like
Ah.
Spanish. That's one of my favorite Spanish expressions. I go consult my pillow before I give you a decision on that.
Oh man,
Huh?
that's
Cool is
funny.
that? And I woke up the next day and I was like, I do want to learn how to speak Spanish. My classes are quite miserable, but I'm in Spain and this is freaking awesome. Like, have you ever
Yeah.
seen pictures of Barcelona? The the architecture with that guy.
Oh my gosh, it's
Gaudi.
so gorgeous.
Like
Yes.
you walk down the street and it's like
Gaudi.
being in a Dr. Seuss book. Like it's just
Jeez.
beautiful. But, you know, I decided honestly that I just was not going to take my class seriously anymore. I wasn't going to study. I wasn't even going to try. I was going to show up and just listen. And then I was going to go hang out in Barcelona because I was in Barcelona and like,
Mhm.
it's an amazingly beautiful place.
That's cool.
And like, when I changed my mindset, do you know how quickly I started speaking Spanish after? Like it happened right after that.
Wow.
Just because I stopped focusing on what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And like, that's where like kind of the basis of this, you know, comes. I started thinking about what I did need to know. Do you know how many times I walked into a restaurant and got a menu and just pointed to something else? I didn't know what I was ordering. And so like in Barcelona, they eat a lot of seafood because it's right on the coast. And I love seafood, but I'm also scared of it. Like if it's good, fresh seafood, and I know exactly the history and the day it was caught, like I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not so much. Like I love it when it's done the right way. And if it's not done the right way, it's caught, you know, I've gotten sick from it and stuff. And so and so, I mean, like, I remember, you know, just doing that thing where I pointed at a menu, getting a plate of food, a plate of, like, literally raw squid, like, I thought I was getting calamari, like, that's something I recognize, right? And they don't do calamari the same way that we do it here. They give you the whole octopus, and it wasn't cooked, and it was a plate of raw octopus. Someone later came to tell me that somebody was probably screwing with me because I was that's not right either. But anyway, I got served a plate of raw octopuses.
Yeah.
Like,
that's disgusting.
Yeah.
I was like, Quinta, I paid my bill because I didn't know how to argue and send it back or ask for something else.
Yeah.
In embarrassment, I got up and I left and I went to the restaurant next door. And then I saw something that said sandwich de blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, that's got to be it. And I got a sandwich. That was pretty cool. But
that's
like,
funny.
honestly, I did that for 3 weeks. And then it clicked on me like, what do I need to learn how to order food at a restaurant. That's not what they were teaching me in class. They were doing verb conjugations and
I hate conjugation.
I couldn't understand what that lady was talking about because I didn't speak. She was so nice, but I don't know what she said the whole time. But I realized I need to know how to go into a restaurant and order food. So I just started, you know, looking at my dictionary and food items and making a list. And like next thing you know, like it then like I saved it. I was so glad I stuck through and I ended up having a great time. But,
that's another good way to do it if we ever get to go to restaurants again.
Yeah.
Is go to Mexican restaurants. We have a food truck not far from here.
Oh, nice.
And I always do my ordering for both me and my husband in Spanish. And I think the proprietors appreciate that too.
they absolutely do. I guarantee.
Oh,
it.
It's so funny. The Spanish restaurant not too far from my house. It used to be owned by two brothers and their wives, and so it was Dos Gorditos, or no, they had it. It was really weird because when I was just learning Spanish, and I was like, I feel like one of these is wrong. It was Dos Gorditas, and I was like, shouldn't there be an O or be like las or something? Like this feels wrong. But whatever. But now it's just the one brother that owns it, so it's El Gordito. And it was hilarious when we would go in there when I was first learning, and I was letting them know that I was first learning it and stuff, and they're like, "Oh, you come here, you practice like that, you know." And so I would get ready to order something. He goes, try in Espanol, and so I was like, okay, and so I was like, but it was really funny. They really loved it, and one of the guys that was there when it was still the two brothers that owned it, he still works there, and so every so often he'll see me and he'll go, hola. It's so funny. But yeah, it's hilarious. And when you were saying like on speaking and how like sometimes you'll switch it, to where you'll actually say something in English or whatever. I actually noticed right before we started the class, the Amor Sin Condición song, when I was looking at it, the very last line where it says, like, you've been so good to me, the last part of it, I actually put part of me instead of to me or something like that. And I was like, oh, whoops, I probably should change that. I just noticed that.
Pathway being created, right? So cool. It is 4 o'clock. It's 4:01, so we need to wrap things up here. Remember, the whole point of this is to help you guys also build connections with each other. So we do have Abrar who's learning English. If anybody wants to be a volunteer to be a conversation partner for Abrar and talk on the phone or exchange numbers, feel free to do that.
Sure.
And that's how we build our virtual community and help each other out. We do this, so I do this for our students and for the Duolingo community on Wednesdays. Wednesday, this is tutoring, so it does help me if you can bring your questions to me, right? So as you're going through your classes over the next week, try and think about things that are like kind of confusing you a little bit so that you can bring to me and I can kind of give you a breakdown on and teach it to you. And then we do Friday morning 10 to 11 Mountain Standard Time. Friday is just open conversation where all we do is talk and we go back and forth between Spanish and English. So this one's a little bit more educational, but I need you to kind of help give me things to teach you. If that makes sense. And then on Friday, it's just true open conversation. So.
And there have been people from all over the world in the Friday session.
It's really cool.
Yeah. The last few, it's funny how, here in Denver, when we were doing it in person, like every now and then I would get, one person or a couple of people from that would come in from Duolingo. We had more of our own school students that would show up at the in-person events. And then going online, the first couple of months, really, very few people. Our students weren't coming. And then, Duolingo, like Sally, remember it was just you and
yes.
me for the first month. And then all of a sudden, I don't know what happened. We got, 10 people to attend last week. We had someone from Israel, India,
Nicaragua, Venezuela.
Yeah, it was amazing. It's cool.
Mexico City.
Wow. I know there was a lot when I hopped on. I was like, and I was I came on at the last minute.
So keep coming back. And let's stay in touch, okay?
Sí. Muchas
Adiós.
gracias.
Ciao.
Cuídate.
How do you say Abrar? Are you still with us, Abrar?
Yeah.
How do you say goodbye in Arabic?
Goodbye in Arabic. Masalama.
Masalama?
Yeah.
Masarama.
Or bye-bye.
Or bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
So easy. Bye.
Bye.
Adiós.
Adiós.
Que te vaya bien.